Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasankar Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashtadesha. Hare Krishna. So indeed it is a great joy, a great privilege to get an opportunity to discuss the wisdom and the learning from Bhagavad Gita. Although this week, almost every day, I was having classes. But to speak on Bhagavad Gita, to discuss from Bhagavad Gita, to practically learn the principles from Bhagavad Gita, there is never a satiation. It is never complete. The more we dive into the depths of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, the benefit, the greatest benefit we derive. That is why Krishna agreed to become the chariot drivers. Sarthayam Arjuna Sado Urvan Gita Mitam Lokatraya Upakaraya Asmai Paramatmane Namaha. Sarthayam Arjuna Sado. So Krishna is not only becoming the charioteer of Arjuna to steer him through the most difficult time of his life. He was faced against the most formidable force in terms of the army which was arrayed on the battlefield on the opposite side. The army had such mighty generals who were almost invincible, like Bhishmadev, Dronacharya, Karna, Kripacharya, Ashwathama, and many, many more others. But if Krishna is the guide, if Krishna is the guiding force in our life, then whatever difficulties we might face, whatever challenges may come up in our life, it will easily be over. So we see in this first chapter, so far we have seen that Arjuna is giving so much of argument. Actually, this reveals Arjuna's frame of mind, which is his negativity. So the most pain or the suffering which is inflicted in our material existence is not from external source. It is from within. It is from our own mind, which magnifies our problems. So we see the divide between reality and expectation. What Arjuna was expecting is that when he sees the formidable opposition, so he is very much perplexed, he is confused. Why? Because the reality is if he has to win, he has to kill them. What is his expectation? His expectation is to enjoy. So if we actually analyze the reasons which Arjuna is citing not to fight, so these are primarily the reasons that a conditioned soul adduces not to perform his duty. What is his duty? Duty of the living entity is to perform devotional service. So we see very interestingly, I was contemplating and hearing also from senior devotees, that the first reason which Arjuna cites not to fight is of compassion, material compassion. So most of the time we see the conditioned soul, he tries to shy away from performing devotional service. And what is the reason that he gives? Is material compassion. What his family members will think, what his relatives will think, what others will think. If he performs devotional service, then their expectations will be belied. So he does not want to accept the reality that the living entity, its eternal duty is to perform devotional service. And he tries to decry or deny that. So we see a parallel between what Arjuna is citing and what we see in most of our own lives. That there is an opportunity for all of us to perform devotional service. But what is the reason? What my parents will think, what my family members will think, what the society people will think. So these are the grounds. So we see what Arjuna is speaking on our behalf actually. The Bhagavad Gita is very, very graphic. Arjuna is, as I have so many times shared, that Arjuna is playing a double role. One part he is playing of a normal conditioned living entity, like all of us, who is always trying to avoid or eliminate what is the most beneficial, that is to perform devotional service. And on the other hand, Arjuna is also playing the role of a pure devotee. But here we see in this section, in particular, Arjuna playing the role of a conditioned soul. So first reason which Arjuna gives is of material compassion. And this compassion relates to us, that when we give such similar instances of not performing devotional service. Second reason Arjuna gives is of enjoyment. So in all our endeavors, in all our attempts, we are seeking enjoyment. And if our enjoyment is curtailed or compromised, then of course we are not interested to do that act. So similarly, our mind is always imposing this condition on us, that if we take to the process of devotional service, what will happen to my enjoyment? So many restrictions will come, so many regulations will come. Then what will happen to me? How can I enjoy? But actually, through the body, through the senses, or even through the mind, the soul can enjoy it. Like the fish, if it is taken out of water, irrespective of whatever opulence you may offer the fish, unless and until it is back in water, there cannot be even a iota of happiness. So similarly, most of us, we have a fear that if we take to the practice of devotional service, we will not be able to enjoy this. Our life will be, but that is not a fact. Again, the expectation denies the reality. The reality is, if we take to devotional service, we experience the spiritual joy, the ever-ending bliss. The soul experiences the joy which the mind or the senses can never. But for that, we have to become a sincere practitioner. But before we become a sincere practitioner, we take to the dictates of mind. And the mind says that if we take to the practice, we will not be able to enjoy. So better give up. The tendency of routine. And the third reason that Arjuna gave was of sinful reaction. That is also very interesting. When we take to the process of Krishna consciousness, so we see that we have been performing so many rituals in our family members. And when we come to perform devotional service, those rituals are not performed. So if we do not perform the rituals, many times our mind and our family members, they make us believe that we will be infected by sin. Interestingly, there was a devotee in his family. They were Durga worshippers. And Durga worshippers, Kali worshippers, so they used to offer a sacrifice to the deity. And when he became a devotee, he told that this is very, very sinful, that you are slaughtering an animal, a helpless, poor animal. So he said that should be stopped. But the family members say that if we stop that, then what we will be infected by? Sinful reaction. The goddess will become very much, in rage. and she will curse us. So these examples or these reasons or these arguments are the negative frame of mind which is revealed of Arjuna. So this negativity is very much there, it is very deep embedded in us, and which does not allow us to really come to the platform of enjoying the real value of human life. So we will proceed. Last time we discussed till 38th verse, in which Arjuna was speaking about that all these on the opposite side, they are very much overtaken by greed, and they see no fault in killing one's own kinsman. So Arjuna said that if they have become blind, if they have become so selfish, and they are not restricted to committing sinful act, but why should we follow them? Why should I do what is sinful? So Arjuna on his own is giving very powerful arguments, and he is thinking, he is backing up with Shastra. He knows what is right and what is to be done and what is not to be done. So similarly, many times we meet people and they are obsessed with this idea that they know what is right and what is not. And this does not allow them the opportunity to take the highest benefit in sin, is to perform devotional service. So now we will see, henceforth, we will try to complete this chapter if possible. Let us see how the discussion goes. 6 verses are there to make it a little more fast-paced. So Arjuna gives another reason, another very powerful logical argument. And what is this argument? This is from the 39th verse. He says, Kulashaya pranashyanti kula dharma sanatana dharme nashte kulam krishnam adharmo vi bhavatuta. So kulashaya, shaya means to diminish or to destroy. So what he says, kul means the lineage or the family tradition. He says, if I fight and if I kill, what will happen? Kula Shaya Pranashyanti. That the entire lineage of the family or the dynasty, this will lead to the destruction or demolition of the dynasty. The eternal family tradition is vanquished. Then what happens? Kula Dharma Sanatana. Then what are the traditions, whatever has been happening in the family, it will all be lost. It will all be lost. And dharme nashte, if the family tradition is lost, the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. So previously he was saying sin. Now he's giving an even more formidable argument that this is irreligion. If I fight for the right cause, this is irreligion. If you tell people not to kill, so they will say, as I said, that this is irreligion. From where this conception is coming? From their own mental conception. Let us see what Srila Prabhupada says. In the system of Varnashram institutions, there are many principles of religious traditions to help the members of the family grow properly and attain spiritual benefits. The elder members are responsible for such purifying process in the family, beginning from the birth to death. So these are called the purificatory rites or samskar. There are 10 samskar, Dashmuli samskar, and it begins from birth. So if we want to have the good progeny, we want to have the good family, I mean the new members, the newborn baby, to be a pious soul, what is required? There has to be a reformatory ritual which is performed. It's called Garbhadhan Samskar. In Garbhadhan Samskar, that before the conception of the child, of course, both the mother and the father, they are married. and they seek the blessings of their elders. And in particular, for getting the soul who is spiritually elevated, they worship the Supreme Lord. That is the Garbhadham Samskara. In our Krishna consciousness movement, when a married couple they want to conceive a child, so there is a process of remaining pure. To the extent the mother and the father, their consciousness is pure, while they come together and conceive the child, there is possibility of a pure soul descending in their life, coming in their lives. And here Prabhupada is saying that this is the responsibility of the elders. So we need now the modern way of living, that everyone wants to remain independent. They don't want to have the influence of their elders or their parents. But if we do not have parents, we do not have elders, we do not have experienced family members, and what is lost? All these good rituals are lost. All these traditions are lost. And what kind of children we are having now? Mother and father are scared of begetting even one child. Why? Because the child is so disobedient, is so disrespectful. Why? What is the reason? Because the proper samskaras are not there. Where are these samskaras coming? Samskaras are coming from the culture, from the tradition which is prevailing in the family. So Prabhupada says, the elder members are responsible for such purifying processes in the family, beginning from birth to death. But on the death of the elder members, such family traditions of purification may stop, like we see now. One of the purificatory process. There are at every step there is purificatory process. Before the child takes birth, there is the Garbhadham Samskar, and after the child takes birth, there is another process, the formatory process. Is called the Jata Samskar. And then before he begins to study, there is Upnayan Samskar. So at every level there is this process of purification. But if the elders are not there, but now we see, do you see anywhere these samskars being observed? Very rare. Hardly. In the mass of men, they have given away. As they have given away the process of following this tradition, following these values. So what we are receiving now? We are begetting childlike cats and dogs. So this is one of the reasons. So Arjuna is citing very powerful reason based on Shastra, that if I kill, so all the elders will be killed and then the family tradition will be destroyed. So Prabhupada says, such family traditions of purification may stop and the remaining younger family members may develop irreligious habits. So what we see today, the young generation, they do not believe in religion. They are at heart irreligious or atheist. So what we see, there is no culture. So because the elders are not respected, the elders' opinion, their recommendation is not accepted. So this is the situation. So the younger family members may develop irreligious habits and thereby lose their chance for spiritual salvation. There is no question of salvation. What to speak of spiritual salvation? Therefore, for no purpose should the elder members of the family be slain. So Arjuna is giving very powerful argument based on Shastra, based on logic, based on experience. And then he further takes it forward. He says when the family members become irreligious and when the traditions and customs are not maintained, what further complications it will lead? 40th verse. Adharma vi bhavat krishna pradushyanti kulastriya strishu dushtishu vashneya jayate varna sankara. So Arjuna is very deeply contemplating that what would be the consequences, what would be the result of such irreligious practices. So he says, when irreligion is prominent, adharma vibhava, like we see today, irreligion is very prominent. O Krishna, the woman of the family becomes polluted. And from the degradation of womanhood, O descendants of Vishnu, comes unwanted progeny. We will try to understand the principle which Arjuna is reducing here to the purport of the Prabhupada. So what he's saying, that if there is irreligion in the family or in the society, what it will lead to, that the chastity of the woman will be compromised. The woman of the family becomes polluted. And from the degradation of womanhood, or descendant of Vishnu, comes the unwanted. Because the progeny is only through the mothers. So Prabhupada says that good population in human society is the basic principle for peace, prosperity, and spiritual progress. So that is why we see that in today's world, there is no question of peace. Why? Because there is no good population. Neither there can be prosperity, or what to speak of spiritual progress. The Varnashram religious principles were also designed that the good population would prevail in society for general spiritual progress of state and community. So Krishna recommends in Bhagavad Gita the process of Varnashram, that how the social society is classified. It is not divided, it is classified. Classified in terms of Varna and Ashram, in terms of their occupation and in terms of their social order. So that is called Varna Ashram. Like we have the structure, the human body. We have the head, we have the hands, we have the belly, and we also have the legs. It does not mean that the head is only to be taken care of. Without legs, we cannot walk. Similarly, there is the classification of the society based on one's occupation, that is his engagement, and second, his social order. But it was exploited. That is why we had the system of caste, but it is not based on the caste system. It is based on the qualification of Brahmana, which is considered to be the head, because they have knowledge. Second is the Kshatriya, which is compared to the hands. Because most of our activity, how do we perform? Through our hands. Hands have all the energy. That is compared to the Kshatriya. And the belly is compared to the Vaishyas. Just imagine. Here, the digestion is not there. If you do not feed, then what will happen? Even our brain will not. Does it work? If you are hungry for 2 days, if you don't get food, what will happen? You say, "Na, dimag kaam nahi kar raha." The mind is not working. First feed me. And the Shudras are compared to the legs. Why? Because the legs takes the entire weight of it. It supports the body. It makes the body move, perform activity. So similarly, the classification is based on one's engagement and his level of consciousness. So that system has now been completely dispensed, distorted, or destroyed. In modern era, so-called modern era, there is only one class. And what is that class? Completely irreligious class. So, but Arjuna is talking about not Varnashram. He says one Sankara, unwanted progeny. Because if irreligion is there in the society, in the family, and elders are not there to guide, so what will happen? The woman can be enticed by unscrupulous men. And because of these unscrupulous men, the woman will become unchaste. And from unchaste woman, what will come is unwanted population. That is Varna Sankara. So Prabhupada is speaking that the Varnashram religious principles were so designed that the good population would prevail in society for the general spiritual progress of state and community. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of the woman. So this is one of the secrets. That is why we see, just see 2 generations back or 3 generations back. All the sons and the daughters were so obedient. They never ever desired to keep their parents away from them. But now what we see? Hardly anyone is willing to be with us. They want to live independent. Why? Because the population is not good. Why? Because the chastity is being compromised. As children are very prone to be misled, women are similarly very prone to degradation. Therefore, both children and women require protection by the elderly member. By being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. Adultery is very rampant. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. So don't get bothered by the statement. For those women, those who are irreligious, those who do not follow the principles. So the different family traditions of religious activity should always engage them. So what is required, what is recommended, that always there should be some religious practices. That culture should be, so that they are not misled or they are not usurped by the unscrupulous men. And thus their chastity and devotion will give birth to good population, eligible for participating in Varnashram system. On the failure of such Varnashram dharma, naturally the woman will become free to act and mix with men. And thus adultery is indulged in at a risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men also provoke adultery in society. And thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. So these are all the fears which Arjuna is presenting here. His mind has gone into serious frame of negativity. He is seeing everything in the reverse order. He does not see any good. So his mind is making him think that whatever will be the result will be negative. And then he further says, he further adds up to what he is arguing. He says, Sankaro narka eva kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaro hiyesham lupta pindo dadakriya. Then he says that what will happen with the result of the chastity of the woman is compromised will be unwanted population. And if there is unwanted population, then what will be the result? He further contemplates and he says, Sankaro narka eva, that the unwanted, let us say, Varna Sankara. So today we see that the Varna Ashram is not there. So what is there? Varna Sankara. If we don't have the Varna Ashram system, the so-called socialist or communist, they advocated for classless society. That there should not be any division of class. But this division is very much required. Why? Because not everyone is a Brahmin and not everyone is a Kshatriya. So the cooperation between all the classes are required so that they can progress. And if they do not do that, then what will be the result? Like today we face the unwanted population. So this unwanted progeny or the impious or irreligious population, where are they heading towards? Narka eva. They are rapidly progressing towards the path of the advancement of technology. We can move fast. We can travel fast. But what is the direction? What is the destination where we are rapidly going? Is towards the direction of Sankaro narka eva and kulagnanam kulasya. So this will lead to complete devastation or destruction of the family tradition. So Arjuna is saying an increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life, both for the family and those who destroy the family tradition. Kulagna naam kulasya. Kulagna means one who destroys the family, and kulasya means the family itself. So both will be destroyed. And not only they are destroyed, what will be the impact of it? He says, Patanti Pitaro Esha. Pitara, you understand, the forefathers, those who have already departed, those who do not exist, those who have already left their body, and they have gone to other form of life. So scientifically, it is there that there are various planets. Apart from Earth, there are other planets. And our Vedic science reveals that one of the planets is also called the Pitaralu, which is the planets of the ancestors. Krishna will speak that in Bhagavad Gita, that his devotee comes to this planet, whereas the worshippers of the demigods, they go to the heavenly planets. And those who are the worshippers of their ancestors and fathers, they go to the Pitaralu. So what will be the result? That the family tradition will be destroyed. The ancestors of such corrupt families will fall down. To those who have passed away or those who have died. So the result of this irreligious practice in the family will result in impacting them, and they will also suffer. Because the performance of the offering them food and water are entirely stopped. So we see in the Indian tradition that there is this tradition of performing Shraddh. Shraddh. Although it is becoming extinct now. Our parents used to perform, but most of us don't believe it. Why? Because the present generation, they do not want to perform any service to their previous ancestors. So when this Shraddh ceremony is performed, when the oblation is offered to the forefathers, it is offered through Lord Vishnu. In Gaya, there is a very big Vishnu Murti. And since long this culture is there, this tradition is there. Lord Chaitanya himself also went to perform the oblation, the oblatory rites of his deceased father. So when the family becomes irreligious, when the unwanted progeny is there, so what they will do? They will stop performing all the religious processes. And when they stop performing the religious processes, they will stop offering the oblations to the forefathers in terms of Shraddh. So what will be the result? That the forefathers will fall. See how much Arjuna's mind is contemplating. How much consequences Arjuna is expecting. But it is not reality. Today's class is expectation versus the reality. So Arjuna is giving very formidable reasons. So similarly, our mind also gives so many reasons, so many arguments. It is filled with fears, with phobias. Interestingly, once I was doing some research on the phobias, on the fears, what the mind imagines, mind imagines or it magnifies our fear, our problem. So as there is a divide between expectation and reality. It leads to anxiety and stress and often to depression. Because we are unable to face the reality. And our heart is filled with expectation. There are so many desires. So when there is a reality check, there is this situation, the overwhelming situation. So one of the biggest fear that everyone has in this material existence is the fear of death. Anyone knows what is this fear called? Fear of death. Anyone who is free from the fear of death? One may ostensibly say that he does not fear death, But when he comes to a death-like situation, then the reality will come. Then again, there will be a shock between expectation and reality. So that is called hantophobia. Hantophobia. Fear of death. And you know what is the second greatest fear which is prevailing in modern society? Anyone?
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure is there, but more than fear of failure is the fear of loneliness. Loneliness. Entire day today's youth are on the social media, but in their heart they are completely alone. That is called agoraphobia. And of course, as you said, that is the fear of failure. It is called atychiphobia. Atychiphobia. And there is one more fear today which is very prominent. Any guess? What is that? Very common fear. Fear of pain, fear of losing our mobile. Because that is the only source through which we can enjoy. That is called nomophobia. And there is fear of everything. That is called the pantophobia. So in this material world, there is so much of fear, and the mind magnifies our fears. So Arjuna, in his imagination, in his expectation, is giving so many reasons that he is expecting or he is contemplating that such degradation will happen in the family if he fights. So the Prabhupada continues that sometimes the forefathers may be suffering from various types of sinful reactions. And sometimes some of them cannot even acquire a gross material body and are forced to remain in the subtle body as most. It happens. If particularly they have performed very sinful activities in their life. Anyone, it is therefore anyone and everyone. Thus the remnants of prasad food are offered to forefathers by descendants. And the forefathers are released from ghostly or other kind of miserable life. So this offering of prasad to the forefathers gives them relief. It rescues them from all kind of suffering and miseries. Interestingly, but it has to be prasad. First, it has to be offered to Lord Vishnu. And then the remnants of it must be offered to the ancestors or the forefathers. Such help rendered to forefathers is a family tradition. And those who are not in devotional life are required to perform such. This is very prominent statement. And this tradition, this custom or this ritual is very much required for those who are not in the devotional life. If you are not in the devotional life, then what kind of life we are leading? We are leading irreligious life. And in irreligious life, what are we committing? Sinful actions. So in the sinful activity one has performed, he is sure to suffer. And if he is sure to suffer, if he is offered this oblation, if he is offered the remnants of the prasad, then his sinful implication is eradicated or is free from it. Then Prabhupada says that one who is engaged in devotional life is not required to perform such actions. Why? Simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers from all kinds of miseries. This is very, very revolutionary. That if one performs devotional service in all sincerity, what he does, not only he benefits himself, but he benefits the entire family. Not just the family, hundreds and thousands of the ancestors. And not just the ancestors, even the future generations. And it is not a utopia or an imagination. We have seen in the life of hundreds and thousands of devotees who are practicing the process of Krishna consciousness. False compassion we give, we don't want to practice Krishna consciousness. Why? Because it will pain my mother and father. They will feel that we are not becoming a source of enjoyment for them, or our enjoyment will be curtailed. But if we actually want to give the greatest gift to our parents, if we really value them, or as we claim that we love them, then how we can give benefit? By performing devotions. There are many, many stories, but one story which comes to my mind I will share, because I happened to meet one of these devotees very recently, just 1 month back. So there was a family in Pune. Pune, you know, in Maharashtra. And it was a middle class Maharashtrian family. The husband, he was a principal in government school, Mr. Bhagwan Malwarkar. And his wife, she was a pious lady. Both of them were pious. And they lived a normal life. And they had 2 sons. And both sons were very bright, very prospective. They were both pursuing their engineering degrees. They were studying in one of the best engineering colleges there in Pune. And during their course of study, they were introduced to Krishna consciousness by one of the devotees who used to come and preach in the campus. So both these sons, the young sons of this couple, of Mr. Bhagwan Malwarkar and his wife, they started to practice the process of Krishna consciousness. So immediately what happens? Alarm goes in the room. There was an alarm. And that why these young sons, they have taken to this practice. Now why they want to become sage. So anyway, the mother was very intelligent. So she said that whoever is teaching you, guiding you, I want to meet you. You call your teacher, invite him to our residence, and let us meet him. Let us know what his mission is. And why is he deviating you from your path of success? What motive he has in his heart? Why is he misguiding both of you? So they decided, the family decided that they will call that devotee. And that devotee was called, invited to their house for having dinner with them. And he came. And when the family members met him, and when they saw him, that he was very learned, was very well educated, and the principles that he was following, and what were the reasons that he was following. So both were convinced. And they said that why only my sons could take the benefit? Why not we? So it was agreed that that devotee will come once in a week to visit their house, and they will perform one spiritual program. So that they would invite their neighbors and their relatives, and this would happen. So this became a part of the family. So they were happily into Krishna consciousness. But as you know, in material life, every day there is a change. Situations change. So that Mataji, that mother, she somehow experienced a lot of pain and discomfort in her left leg. And she went to the doctor to get it diagnosed. And when the diagnosis was done, one of the reasons that came out that she was inflicted with cancer. She had a very advanced stage of breast cancer. And it came like a jolt in her life. That her both sons, they were practicing the path of Krishna. In fact, both of the sons, they joined the temple. They joined the Pune temple. But she did not stop them, or she did not resist, because she was thinking that if this is Krishna's plan, let it be so. She was in the good mood of sacrifice. But when she herself received this jolt that she was diagnosed with cancer, and that pain that comes from the cancer, that excruciating pain, was tormenting. When the sons came to know that their mother had been diagnosed with cancer, they came and met her, and immediately the treatment started. She underwent a major surgery. But because the cancer cells had spread all over her body, it has reached the bone. It was not curable. And the doctors told the sons that their mother had only 7 months max to exist. And any treatment, he said, would hardly prolong her for a month or so. So the mother was experiencing so much of pain and she was not getting relief. So when the sons came to her, meet her, she said, it is better for me to commit suicide and die. Because this pain is unbearable. It is very excruciating. She could not sleep the entire night. And whatever painkillers or medicines she was taking, it was only temporary. For a few hours, the pain would abate, and again it would come back. So she said that I am completely helpless. So the sons requested their mother that in this helpless condition, you should take shelter of Krishna. You should take to devotional service. And they gave the example of Parikshit Maharaj, who had 7 days to prepare to face the death. All of us will have to face that situation. None of us can escape the reality, whatever may be our expectations. But the boys told the mother that in your case, you are more privileged because you have 7 months instead of 7 days. So you please meditate instead of meditating on pain. You try to meditate on Krishna. I have experienced myself. Once I was undergoing a surgery in AIIMS, and just next to me in the room, there was a sharing room. There was a cancer patient, a lady, and she was on her last days. Somehow, because she was on the last days, the doctor, Dr. Arunaksh Srivastava, was the HOD. He was both the HOD of surgery also and of breast cancer. So he inadvertently put that lady in my room. He said that, Swamiji, आप तो हमेशा हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र सुनते रहते हैं. At least she will get the meaning. But I could see that, of course, she was very much excruciating. She was experiencing that pain. But many times I tried to help her to chant and hear Hare Krishna. Very difficult. She was not able to. But in this case, when the profound wisdom and the suggestion came from the sons, she thought that let me shift to temple. I have just few months left. So let me take the full shelter of Krishna. And the sons requested the temple president, and he agreed. And with the sons, the mother and father, they also came. And they were staying in the Pune temple. And as she moved in the temple, she started to attend the morning program. She attended the Bhagavatam class. She started to honor Prasad. Her brain gradually settled. And after a few days, she was not experiencing any. She almost became like before. And when she came in that situation, she was very happy. And she thought, let me go back. Our attachment to our heart and heart is very heavy. So the family, the sons took her back. And when she came back after a few days, the pain came back. But when the pain came back, this time she resolved that I will not come back. Because who knows, she may leave the body anytime. So again she came back. And this time she was much more determined. And she said, the shelter of Krishna cannot be complete without accepting the medium of spiritual master. So she prayed very fervently to Krishna that please allow me to take shelter of your bona fide representative. And she got initiation because of her sons and the temple president's recommendation. And while the initiation process was there, she was asked that why she wants to have initiation. Initiation is not given to anyone and everyone. One may aspire, even those who are sincere may aspire, but it is on the spiritual master to decide. Because the spiritual master's connection with the disciple is not of only this life. So she wrote that she wants to preach. And everybody laughed that what will she preach? She is in such a state. She is completely helpless. But she said that yes, whoever comes to the temple, I will distribute Charnamrit to him or to her. And I will request him to take to the process of devotional service by chanting Hare Krishna. And she very sincerely, earnestly. And when her relatives and others came to visit her, she was overcome by the fear of death. She completely forgot that after a few days, her lifespan, she became so absorbed in the practice of devotional service that she even forgot that the D-Day is approaching fast. And she was completely fearless. And as I said, the pain was also no more. But the final day, the examination day, has to come for everyone. And that day came for her life. She had moved into the temple around 4 months back. And when that final day came, the final day came, before she passed away, she told her husband that you please go and live with our relatives. I do not want you to be in my presence. Because if I see you, I will start thinking about you. And I will not be able to think about Krishna. Krishna gave her that Krishna. And she told her sons that you always be alongside. Because seeing you, I will remember Krishna. Think of Krishna. And she became so peaceful. The son said, and the doctors also who visited her, they said, we have never seen a bone cancer patient as peaceful as this lady. And when the final day came of her passing away, she had both her sons sitting by their side and chanting the Hare Krishna. And in Brahma Muhurta, early hours of morning, she very peacefully passed. So here Prabhupada is saying, it is not only one, so many of my devotee friends, their parents passed away. At the final moment, Krishna arranged that they were there. Or even if they were not there, one of the devotees, he told me that at the last stage, the last breath of his father's passing away, his father told his family members that I want to hear Hare Krishna. And by hearing Hare Krishna, he very peacefully passed. So here Prabhupada is saying that Arjuna is crying foul. Arjuna is denying to perform the devotional service. What is Arjuna's devotional service? Is to fight for him, is to fight for religion. So simply by performing devotional service, one can deliver hundreds and thousands of forefathers of all kinds of miseries. I remember there is a verse in Padma Puran. The Padma Puran says that Nityanti Pitara Sarve Nityanti Cha Pitamaha. Nityanti means to dance. So who is dancing? Nityanti Pitara Sarve. Pitara means those forefathers, those ancestors, those who have left. They are in ecstasy, they are dancing. Nityanti Pitara Sarve, Nityanti Cha Pitamaha. All the ancestors and the forefathers, they are experiencing great ecstasy. Why? Madvamsho Vaishnava Jat. That in my family now, who has taken birth? A Vaishnava. A devotee has taken birth. Seme Trata Bhavishya. So we have the greatest privilege. What? That we will be delivered. Soon we will be delivered. So if we really want to do good to our parents, can we change their destination by money? Can we change the destination by post? Can we change the destination by building a big house or giving them some car? No. But we can certainly change their destination by practicing the process of devotion. And we see in our society, most of the family members, the parents, they have become devotee because their children became. Here Prabhupada is saying that just by performing devotional service, one can deliver thousands and thousands of forefathers and ancestors. Prabhupada quotes the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Devarishi Bhutata Naranam Pitranam Naking Karonayam Charajan Sarvatmanaya Sharanam Sharanam Gato Mukandam Pariharte Kartum. Anyone who has taken to the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of liberation. Krishna has so many names, but each name has a very special meaning. Krishna is called Mukunda. Mukunda means one who gives liberation. What is the liberation? That the soul is free from bondage. Giving up all kinds of obligations and has taken to the path in all seriousness. This is very important. We have so many obligations. Every living entity has so many obligations. I will discuss that in this verse. What is the obligation? Deva, towards the demigods. We all owe something to demigods or not? Yes or no? Most of us in the ignorance, we don't accept that. Because without the demigods, we cannot have the basic necessities of life. We cannot have air, we cannot have fire, we cannot have water. How can we live? How can we sustain? So we have obligations for devas because they are supplying us the necessities of life. And rishis, the sages. Bhuta, Bhuta means the other living entities, the general living entities. Apta, Apta means the family members. And Pitranam, Pitranam means the ancestors. Then such obligations, Prabhupada says, are automatically fulfilled by performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality. Can we fulfill the obligation to the demigods? Can we fulfill the obligation to the sun for providing us light and energy? Is it possible? Can we fulfill the obligation of Vayudev for giving us oxygen? Can we fulfill? We cannot fulfill. What to speak of all other rin? These are rinichara. Rin means that we have obligation. So there are so many obligations in the human form of life. But by performing devotional service in one stroke, we fulfill all the obligations. There is no need to perform any obligation separately if we are performing devotional service. So Arjuna is not accepting this principle. Arjuna is showing complete ignorance. So most of us do not accept this principle. So we suffer and we do not give the advantage to ourselves, not to our family. The one who performs devotional service, Krishna assures, Swalpam api yasya dharmasya prahite mahatma. He will be protected from the greatest fear or danger. What is the greatest danger? To go to him. One who is performing devotional service, for him, he will never see the doors of it. Not only for him, even his family members. Not only his family members, those who have passed away in the past. Even they, if they are in hell, they can. The Prabhupada says, for whom? What kind of practitioner? Those who are serious. And Arjuna in the 42nd verse continues. He says, Doshe rete kulagnana parna shankar karke Utsadyanta jati dharma kula dharma shashvata. So by the evil deeds, what is the evil deed? Of not performing the obligations or oblations to the forefathers. Those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. So Arjuna gives one reason after the other. Prabhupada says that the community projects for the four orders of human society combined with family welfare activities as they are set forth by the institution of Sanatana Dharma or Varna are designed to enable the human being to attain the ultimate salvation. So this classification of the society was made in such a way that everyone can automatically progress. How? By being performing his occupation. And very simple. Very simple. Just by performing their occupation and engagement, they would progress. And in Varna Ashram Dharma, the Brahmanas were leading. The Brahmana is the head. Like if we have to move forward, how do we move? We see through the eyes. So the Brahmanas were leading all the other classes of men. That are the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas and the Shudras. And the center was based on Lord Vishnu. Varnashram, Acharit Purusha, Vishnu, Aradhate Pumsa. Na anya tat doshkara. Vishnu Aradhate Pumsa. So the entire society was leading a religious life. A life which was free from sinful activity. So when one is free from sin, what will happen? He will naturally progress. If a student is free from distraction, what he will do? He will study. And if he will study, what he will experience? He will experience progress, prosperity. So this distraction is there because of irreligion. So the evil deed, so he says that I don't want to become the cause of this evil deed of destroying the family tradition by killing. If I kill, what will be the result? The elders will be dead. And the elders will be dead. The chastity of the woman will be lost. The chastity of woman is lost. There will be unwanted progeny. With the unwanted progeny, the tradition of offering oblations to forefather will be stopped. And they will fall. This is an evil deed. So by this evil deed of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. So otherwise, imagining, and he is citing so many reasons why Arjuna is not thinking that by performing devotional service, what will be the gain? Many times in our life, we are faced with such a situation. We always try to compromise on the part of devotional service. Or why we are facing troubles, or why we are facing difficult situations in our life. The reason for that is that it is because of the reaction which is coming of not performing our work. And again, we are trapped in the same situation. So Prabhupada talks about the community projects in this book. He says that the community projects for four orders of human society combined with family welfare activities are set forth by the institution of Sanatana Dharma or Varnashram Dharma are designed to enable the human beings to attain the ultimate salvation. Therefore, the breaking of the Sanatana Dharma tradition by irresponsible leaders of society brings about chaos. That we see now. That is very much prevalent now. There is no Varna and no Ashram. And consequently, people forget the aim of life. What is the aim of life? Vishnu. Not Vishnu. Such leaders are called Dharmi. And the persons who follow such leaders are sure to be led into chaos. So Arjuna is saying that I don't want to be the root cause. I don't want to be the factor which makes this situation arise. And then he continues to give further arguments. Utsana kula dharmanam manusyanam janardhana narke niyatam vaso vediyati anushushama. Then he says, oh Krishna, because Krishna is Janardhana. Janardhana means one who is the maintainer or also the protector. So he says, you are Janardhana. Oh Krishna, you are the maintainer. And what are you enticing me for? To perform this ghastly act. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic submission that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. So why do you want me to go to hell? And why do you want my entire family and sisters to rot in hell? Arjuna bases his arguments not on his personal experience, but on what he has heard from the authorities. So Prabhupada compliments Arjuna. He says that is the way of receiving real knowledge. But Arjuna is misinterpreting, misquoting, and misinterpreting. So see, Shastras have so much of knowledge. But which principle is to be applied when and where and to whom? This understanding is difficult, not rather difficult, it is impossible. So Arjuna is misapplying Shastra. One cannot reach the real point of factual knowledge. Prabhupada gives this. One cannot reach the real point of factual knowledge without being held by the right person, who is already established in them. So as you have heard, that if one has partial knowledge, one half knowledge is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Why? What is the probability that he will miss? And this is what is happening with Arjuna. He is applying it in wrong context. So unless and until one is guided by a person in knowledge, and that is the spiritual master or the spiritual authority. Even if he knows Shastra, even if he has studied Shastra. I gave you the example of one, Dr. Patel. I told you about Dr. Patel. Yeah. He knew so much Shastra. He had studied practically almost most of the Shastra. He was very learned in Sanskrit. But he could not do any good to himself. Why? Because he was always arguing. He was always arguing. But here we see from the view of Arjuna that Arjuna is unilaterally contemplating his own ideas, his own opinions, his own arguments. Prabhupada is saying one cannot reach the real point of factual knowledge without being held by the right person who is already established in that knowledge. There is a system in the Varnashram institution by which before death one has to undergo the process of atonement for a sinful act, which is called Prayashchit. That is also over. Does anyone do Prayashchit? No. Because they feel that they have not performed any sin. So I have to think of Prayashchit. Prayashchit is only to be thought that consciousness is not there. That sensitivity is not there. That awakening is not there. One who is awakened to the level of consciousness, he only will think of performing Prayashchit. The one who is always engaged in sinful activities must utilize the process of atonement or Prayashchit. Without doing so, one will surely be transferred to hellish planets to undergo miserable lives as a result of sinful activity. So Arjuna is giving this argument that I don't want to be the source of sin, that I don't want to kill. And because of my killing, what will be happening? That so many families will go to the hellish life, and so will I. Then he gives his conclusion. He says in the next verse, Aho bato mahat papam kartum vyavastita vayam yad raj sukha lobena hantum swajanam udyata. Aho bato. Aho bato is showing his exclamation He's saying, alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Why? Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness. We are intent on killing our own skinmen. Actually, if you see, Arjuna's arguments are imbued with his own attachments. Hantum swajanam udyata. Because they are mine. And I don't want to kill because of my attachment to them. So he's completely showing ignorance to his duty. And he's giving so many reasons. And what he said, Prabhupada says, driven by selfish motives, one may be inclined to such sinful activities, acts such as killing one's own brother, father, or mother. There are many such instances in the history of the world. We have seen, particularly in the Mughal era, that to become the king, what the son did, he slain his father or his brother. You see, the history is filled with it. Prabhupada gives the example that there are many such instances in the history of the world, but Arjuna, being a saintly devotee of the Lord, is always conscious of moral principle, and he therefore takes care to avoid such acts. And then Arjuna, he gives his judgment. He gives his version. He says, Yadi mam apratikaram ashastram shastra panayah dhartarashtra dhanehanyas tanme shema taram bhave. He says, better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapon in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. So Arjuna is showing so much of renunciation, so much of spirit of sacrifice. He says that I will not kill them, even if they kill me, even if I am unarmed. So Prabhupada says it is the custom according to the Kshatriya fighting principle that an unarmed and unwilling foe should not be attacked. That is the Kshatriya rule. Kshatriya means they're chivalrous. They have the spirit of chivalry, virta. They are not coward. So if the opponent, if he is without weapon, a Kshatriya will not kill him, unless and until he has the weapon to resist, or he has the opportunity to kill his opponent himself. So Arjuna is saying here, Arjuna has become, so magnanimous. He says, even if the sons of Dhritarashtra were to kill me unarmed, but I will not resist, I will not fight. However, Arjuna decided that even if attacked by the enemy in such an awkward position, he would not fight. He did not consider how much the other party was bent upon fighting. All these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from being a great devotee of the Lord. And we find, so Arjuna is showing the spirit of renunciation. But this renunciation is based on his attachment, based on his ignorance. And then Sanjay gives the overall view of what is the situation of Arjuna. Evam muktva Arjuna sankhe rathopastha upavishat visrajyam sasaram chapam shoka samvigna manasa. Arjuna is talking such words of wisdom. He's talking about such renunciation. He's talking about such benevolence. But what is his situation? Just see the situation. Arjuna, Sanjay is revealing to Dhritarashtra, he says, Eva Muktva Arjuna Sankhe. That Arjuna spoke all these arguments, these reasons, and Nirathopusta Upavishit, and he sat on the chariot. Why? Because he does not want to fight, he does not want to kill. And Vishrajyam Shashanam. Chapam is his bow and arrow. He cast aside his bow and arrow and sat down on the chariot. And what is his psychophysical situation? Shokaha. he is filled with grief, and samvigna manasa. Manasa means the mind, and samvigna means which is very much disturbed. He is overwhelmed with grief. So self-study does not enable one to overcome one's real situation. Although he is talking such words of wisdom, such renunciation, he is saying that even they may want to kill me, but I don't want to fight. Let me be killed. But is his mind experiencing any peace by speaking so? Is he getting any relief? No. The purport says that while observing the situation of his enemy, Arjuna stood up on the chariot, but he was so afflicted with lamentation that he sat down again, setting aside his bow and arrow. The Prabhupada says that such a kind and soft-hearted person in devotional service of the Lord is fit to receive such. So what we see from these arguments which are coming, so we also give so many arguments, so many reasons, so many logics, so many reasoning that we do not want to perform devotional service. Or we are always thinking of compromising in devotional service. Reasons are compassion, enjoyment, sinful reaction, destruction of family life. But the reality is that if we perform devotional service, in one stroke, we can give benefit to each and every one in our family. And the family will become glorious. So this is a very important learning that we should not be misguided by our own opinions, by our own whimsical mind, or even by our own strength. Because misapplication was misquoted. It is a couple of minutes to 9. If you have any question or clarification, you may ask. कुछ relate हुआ, something was related, relatable. Today's rampant world, we see that the new generation unmute this. Yes, unmute. Okay. So, but the reality is that if we perform devotional service, not only we can take the highest benefit, we can share this benefit to our family members. Hare Krishna. बोलिए. कोविड टाइप हो गया तो क्या होगा वो बता रहे हैं ना. संकरो नरकाएवा. हाँ तो ये खतरा है, लेकिन खतरा क्या है, क्योंकि क्या हो जाएगा अब होने वाला है. अब नेक्स्ट जनरेशन शादी करने वाली है, वो नहीं करेंगे, बोलेंगे ये सब क्या है, ये सब ऑर्थोडॉक्स करेंगे, वो रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं, इररिस्पॉन्सिबल लाइफ. अभी तो मैरिज ही नहीं होगी. अभी जो चल रहा है सिचुएशन, इंस्टीट्यूशन ऑफ मैरिज में बिलीव बहुत कम है. अभी क्या है, लिव इन एंड लिव आउट लाइक एनिमल्स. एनिमल्स में कोई इंस्टीट्यूशन है मैरिज का? हाँ, ये देखिए जो जीवात्मा है ना, जो सोल है, जब तक उसको सैल्वेशन नहीं मिलता है, इट कॉन्स्टेंटली ट्रैवल. तो अभी बताया कि कुछ सोल्स कहाँ हैं, वो पितृलोक में फंसे हुए हैं, क्योंकि पास्ट लाइफ में कुछ ऐसी एक्टिविटीज थी. तो अगर उनके जो फ्यूचर जनरेशन है वो डिवोटीज हैं, तो वो उनको भी डिलीवर कर सकते हैं. और अगर उनके जनरेशन में डिवोटीज नहीं है, इरिलीजियस पर्सन है, इरिलीजियस पॉपुलेशन है, तो क्या होगा, उनका फॉल्ट होगा। तो अगर हम चाहते हैं वास्तव में अपने माता पिता का हम कल्याण करें, तो बड़ा सिंपल सोल्यूशन है, दैट इज परफॉर्म डिवोशनल सर्विस। कितने हमारे डिवोटीज के पेरेंट थे, इवन मेरे पेरेंट भी, वो फेवरेबल नहीं थे जब मैंने ज्वाइन किया, क्योंकि हर माता पिता यही सोचता है कि मेरा एंजॉयमेंट क्या होगा, खत्म हो गया। उनकी जो एक्सपेक्टेशंस थी वो क्या हो गई, वो सारी की सारी डिस्ट्रॉय हो गई। लेकिन अब धीरे धीरे उनको समझ में आ रहा है कि क्या बेनिफिट। उस ओल्ड एज में जब वो कंप्लीट हेल्पलेस हो गए, तो वो देख सकते हैं कि किस प्रकार से कृष्ण की रक्षा कर। तो मेरा ही केस नहीं है, हजारों केस, हर केस में है, हर केस में। कृष्ण बोलते हैं योग क्षेमम वहामी अनन्यास चिंतयन्तो माम ये जना पर्युपासते तेषां नित्याभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमम्। तो क्या करेंगे, उग्र कर्म ही करेंगे। और उग्र कर्म से व्यक्ति कहाँ जाएगा, surely he will lead to hell and he will cause his ancestors also to go to a very dangerous situation, very very precarious. Okay, anyone else? No impact on our heart. So if we do not perform devotional service, by default what we will perform, sinful act. Anyone online can also ask question if you have any question. तो क्लियरली लिखने की जो डिवोशनल सर्विस और प्रैक्टिस में नहीं, हम चैंटिंग कर रहे हैं, हम 4 रेगुलेटरी प्रिंसिपल्स फॉलो कर रहे हैं, कुछ हद तक हमने जो बोनाफाइड स्पिरिचुअल मास्टर है उनका शेल्टर एक्सेप्ट किया, उन्हें अथॉरिटी एक्सेप्ट की। तो as we progress, so that benefit will go to the ancestors also. Then there is no need, but we should be very fixed up. अपने घर में श्राद्ध करते थे और पंडित को बुलाते थे, और पिंडदान में जो उसको खिलाते थे तो भगवान को भोग नहीं करते। तो एक बार वो भक्त जो था उसने सोचा कि मैं अपने पेरेंट्स को कैसे समझाऊं, सुनते भी नहीं थे, बड़ा मुश्किल होता है पेरेंट्स को समझाना या कन्विंस करना, क्योंकि वो बच्चों को हमेशा बच्चा समझते हैं, कहते हैं हमको कुछ नहीं पता। सारे पेरेंट्स ऐसे नहीं होते, अभी पेरेंट्स में भी चेंज हो रहा है। तो एनीवे उस डिवोटी ने उस दिन कहा कि आप चिंता मत करो, मैं घर आऊंगा और मैं भगवान को भोग लगाऊंगा, उसके बाद आप पंडित को खिलाना। लेकिन पेरेंट्स नहीं माने, नहीं, हमारे यहाँ जो ट्रेडिशन चलता है वही चलेगा, उसमें कोई चीज नहीं। तो एनीवे जब वो श्राद्ध का समय आ गया तो उन्होंने वो रसोई बना ली, और उनका ट्रेडिशन क्या था कि बस केवल पंडित को खिलाते थे, और उसके बाद फिर दोबारा से रसोई साफ करते थे, और उसके बाद फिर अपने लिए अलग से करते। ये मानते थे कि ये जो है ये हमारे फोर फादर्स के लिए, इसमें से हम कुछ नहीं खाएं। पंडित के थ्रू किसके पास जाता है, उनके एंसेस्टर्स के पास जाता है। तो जब जो नॉमिनेटेड समय होता है ना, श्राद्ध का कुछ समय होता है, टाइम पीरियड होता है, तो उस समय वो पंडित नहीं आए। पंडित नहीं आया तो उन्होंने उनको फोन किया कि हमने तो आपको कल बुलाया था, हमने सब तैयारी कर ली है, हमने सारा भोज बना दिया है, अब आप आओ, उपस्थित हो और इसको स्वीकार करो। तो पंडित बोला कि मैं अभी नहीं आ सकता, मैं बहुत दूर हूँ, आपके स्थान से मैं बहुत दूर हूँ और आज मेरे लिए आना संभव नहीं। बड़े क्रोधित हुए, बोले कि ये क्या कर रहे हैं आप? हाँ, आप तो इतने सालों से हमारे यहाँ आ रहे हैं और ये जो अनुष्ठान है करा रहे हैं, but now today you are putting us in such awkward situation. Well, if you are not able to come, you send some of your brother, some other pandit who will come and perform this. तो उन्होंने बोला था ठीक है मैं देखता हूँ, I will try but I cannot assure you. Then what happened? That in the meantime, that devotee came to the house, and his parents told him that this pandit, he has, not come. He is cheating us. So he said, "Don't worry. Did you offer the food to the deities?" They said, "No." So he said, "Can I offer the food to the deities?" तो बोले तुम्हारी इच्छा, जो जिम्मेदार करो। पंडित तो आज आ ही नहीं रहा, ठीक है भगवान निकला। So he offered, and when he was coming down by bringing the plate of offering, the pandit entered the house. Because actually, if the Pindadan is being offered, if it is not being offered to Vishnu, it is useless. It will not give any benefit. But most of those who are performing Shra ceremony, they do not do that. That benefit, they are not able to pass on. So in devotional life, when one practices the path of devotional service, Krishna protects in so many ways miraculously. Those who are practicing the path of devotional service, they should never ever get discouraged. They should not be distracted or diverted what others are. Why? Because one who is not following the process of devotional service is indeed performing sinful action. And that sinful action will lead him to hell, and that will become the cause of his entire community or lineage falling down. There is great protection by performing devotional service. Okay? Shraddha is to be performed, but in Shraddha, what is to be done? Offering is to Vishnu. That is the most important part. But do we do that? Then how the benefit will pass? How the benefit will go? Hare Krishna. You are able to hear, Donamari? Voice is clear?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you very much. From next session, we will start the second chapter. We will see, by speaking so much words of wisdom and knowledge, what is the situation of Arjuna. That we will see in the second chapter. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Yatharup ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare